I was in college for 2 years. I tell my parents I'm no longer getting any use out of this. I just said I'm already studying for my real estate exam, and I'm gonna do it. And I'm just gonna do that full time. I'm gonna burn the ships and figure out a way to make this work. I was probably a little naive into thinking, okay, I'm gonna get my license and I'm just gonna start making money. For the first 3 to 6 months, I didn't make any money, and I was at a crisis. I then joined a small team that focused heavily on leasing. Joining that team really helped. From there, I just figured out ways to leverage relationships. They would stick with me for years to come. So sure, the first year I didn't make a lot of money. The second year I didn't make a lot of money. But finally, by the third and fourth year, I start seeing the compound effect. And now those people who were renting the $1,000 apartments from me are now buying. I look back and I'm like, that really, really paved me into what I'm able to do now. Welcome to another episode of the Straight Up Chicago Investor Podcast. I'm your guest, Micheal Kaplan, and with me as always is your hosts, Tom and Mark.
I'm ready to accept first try here.
I'm ready to accept that first try as well too. That's awesome, man. That was good.
You need some young blood in here. That's all.
Yeah. I wonder if you practice. I don't know. So, did you practice?
Maybe a little.
Yeah, there you go. You got 20. When you're 24, you got to put priorities here.
I would have practiced if I was 24. I remember when I did Bigger Pockets podcast the first time. Like I practiced everything I was gonna say. I wrote it out and then I used none of it.
See, I always go to like the humor side. So like I would like learn it knowing that we do weird languages. I would learn some weird language or make up something complete gibberish and be like, yeah, that was, and make up some country. Yeah. So, all right, man. Fresh blood always feels good. Lance makes me feel young. Actually makes me feel old, but it makes me like retroflective, like what I should have done when I was young. And this makes me feel the same.
Well, these are the ones that, as we're into this stage of our career, we end up mentoring, or I don't know if that's the right word, but it's kind of helping.
No, we're part of the journey. We're not leading it. We become part of the journey.
But you start kind of thinking about like, oh man, I wish I had done this. And that helps you reflect on yourself. And it helps you give feedback because people ask us for feedback all the time. So these type of interviews definitely help you self-reflect, and then be able to provide even better advice to people.
Yeah. We don't, for all the talk about property management, like we don't hit on leasing all that often. Like we talk about it sporadically, but like it's very valuable to have someone who's leased up hundreds of units.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's one of the biggest components of the whole journey, because if you mess up leasing, you mess up the entire management experience, whether you're self-managing or what.
You're playing defense the entire time.
Yes.
Right. Like you're no longer on the offensive. You're just, if you mess that part of the equation up, you're defensive from there on out. Yep. And it just makes everything harder.
That leasing part all the way up until like the move-in, where it's like I showed up and the keys weren't in the lockbox and I'm standing there with my mover. Like those are the moments that you literally play defense for the next 6 months, and tenants are already thinking about not renewing before they even move in. So. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, we're talking about, that's almost like a housing provider tip. Let's get an official housing provider tip here.
All right. Housing provider tip of the week. We've been coming across, appliances are one of the biggest work orders for us. And I think about 30% of our total work orders are appliances. And with a dryer, one thing that we've realized over the years is a lot of times it's not the dryer with the issue. Now, and this ends up being a dryer that might be 3 to 8 years old. These appliances usually aren't lasting more than 10, but you get to 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old, you might just replace. A couple years in, you might be under warranty, or probably don't have problems at all. But when you kind of get in that middle ground with dryers, a lot of times, if your problem is it's not heating up, is one of your first things you check is make sure you've cleaned the ductwork between the dryer vent ductwork from the dryer to the outside. You're supposed to do that every couple of years. It is a fire hazard if you don't do it, but it's something that it might try to do that first, especially if you haven't done that. It's pretty inexpensive fix of something you should do as a first attempt to fix your dryer. So $150, you have a guy out there next day, clears out your dryer vent, stops that from being a fire hazard. Then you see if the dryer is still not heating up at that point. So as far as dryer goes, use that as a first kind of stop to see if you can fix it that way. But at the same time, make sure you're considering cleaning your dryer vents every couple of years as well too.
Yeah, I had one. It also avoids the warranty. I had one that went bad on me in like under a year. And it's because it wasn't the dryer's fault. It overworked because the vent wasn't cleaned out. Oh, wow. And the previous tenant or whatever, like before I took over the property, there's like socks, underwear, there's like just crap in the vent.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Wow. Great way. We didn't even plan that add-on to that tip. So.
No, there you go. Yeah. All right, bring in our guest now.
All right, today's guest, self-proclaimed one of the youngest brokers here in Chicago. I found him, connected with him on Instagram. I love what they do. I love what they represent. He's an investor himself as well too, and he's going to do big things here in the Chicago market in the years to come. So without further ado, Micheal, man, welcome. You go by Micheal or Mike?
Yeah, usually Micheal. Usually Micheal. Thank you guys for having me. I want to.
Micheal sounds so much more professional.
Well, you know, it's funny because my mom has always been the proponent of that because she's like, you know, I named you Micheal. I want people to call you Micheal. I personally don't really care. I've been called a lot worse than Mike or Micheal, so we'll just stick with Micheal. But either way works. So
we'll have to get to know you really well. And we'll call you Mikey.
Exactly.
I don't want to piss off his mom.
Most people call me Micheal or Cap. My last name's Kaplan, so Cap for short. That's kind of like that's my nickname, and also kind of parlays into our team name for real estate, the REKAP Group. So
that's awesome. Well, so my discovery of having my own Instagram profile just about a year ago now,
and you're crushing it.
Well, thank you. But that I found you on there. You're like I like to look at other Chicago people, and the one thing that jumped out at me is your proud badge of being one of the youngest investment brokers out there. Like that's your claim of your like that's bold. I remember when I spent the first 10 years of my career trying to be 10 years older or not put my picture on my business cards and all that stuff. Like what made you come out the gate like trying to promote that? Yeah,
so I think it's kind of like a little bit counterintuitive because when I first started, I feel like everybody was telling me that kind of philosophy, like be old, like act older, don't tell people your age, don't tell people your experience level, but like you can only fake it to make it to a certain point, and people can kind of see through the BS a lot of times. So I'm like, you know what? When I first got in the business, I was 20 years old, didn't have any experience with any real estate experience. I didn't know anybody in the business. I was just kind of fresh. And so I said, you know what, I'm going to wear that with with a badge of honor, and I'm going to embrace that. And I'm going to just lean into it by telling people, hey, listen, I may not have the experience as these guys. I may not have as much knowledge as them. I have a great group around me in terms of support with my brokerage and people that I've surrounded myself with. But I'm going to work harder than anybody else because I got something to prove. And I'm not gonna let this opportunity go to waste. And I think that it's shown for our growth over the last almost 5 years now that I've been in the business. So
we hung up a sign in the office, and it basically it's 10 things that you can have characteristics and not have any skill or experience. And it was all like show up on time, be polite, be likable, work longer, like. Maybe I got to put that on Instagram. It was a good one, but we have it hanging in there. But it's so true. Like you can show up with all those different characteristics and still be able to get through that first part.
For sure. I think a lot of the things that make people great in any business has nothing to do with the business acumen at all. It's all the things that are outside of it. And people, I feel like they appreciate that. And I know you guys being successful businessmen yourself would feel the same way.
Yeah, man. So getting started at 20. Right, like we're in Lance territory here. This is young. What spurred it?
Did you go to college? Would you?
So rewind the tapes. Back in 2020 when I got licensed, I was in college for 2 years. So I went to DePaul University. I was living in the city, and COVID hit obviously in 2020. So
what were you going to school for?
I was business administration with a concentration in real estate. I know it's a mouthful, but basically, I knew I wanted to get into real estate because I have no family in it, no prior background, but my dad is a businessman. He's more in the hospitality space, but he knew nothing about real estate. But he's like, all these people that I know that are, in real estate, they're all living well, and there's something there. And you got to learn that so you can help me, and you got to learn it so you can help you and kind of continue on that path. And I was like, sure, I think that works well with my skill set. So I'm at DePaul. There for 2 years. COVID brings all the classes online. I tell my parents I'm no longer getting any use out of this. This is insane. They were paying for my college, and that's amazing, but the money's still coming from somewhere. It's stupid to be spending that money when I'm just sitting online doing Zoom University. Like, I think a lot of people share that sentiment, and I just said I'm already studying for my real estate exam, and I'm going to do it, and I'm just going to do that full time. I'm going to burn the ships and figure out a way to make this work. And that's kind of how I got started.
Let's talk about the parents' reaction there, because it's kind of a very intelligent, in my view. Like I'm seeing, like, oh, this is a waste of money. I'm not utilizing.
DePaul's not anything less than $80,000 a year, probably. Or something crazy, right?
DePaul ain't cheap, and I mean, I was getting some money off. I was a good student. Like, I don't want people to get the interpretation that like, oh, I'm just this college dropout. Like, I did very well in high school. I did well in college, but I just looked at it logically. I'm like, the ROI here, it's not there. It doesn't make any sense. And so I just laid it out to them straight up. And they were seeing, because I was home, they're seeing me on class, and I'm doing these Zoom, and I'm like we're doing some science class and I'm like playing a video game. Like it's just nonsense. And it wasn't getting any cheaper because of that. And so I'm just like, I kind of have an idea of the path I want to take. And going to your point about my parents' reaction, they were honestly, they were very, very supportive. From day one, I think they have a little bit of a different mindset with my dad being an entrepreneur. But I also do know people like other people outside of my parents, their reaction was maybe a little bit more like, what the heck are you doing? Because just how there's people who come from areas where they are the first people in their area to go to college. I come from an area, I'm from Vernon Hills, went to Stevenson High School, where if you don't go to college, it's like, what the heck? So that's kind of the story on that.
I'm going through for the last few years. So my son, he's only 13, but since he's 11, he's like, listen, he hates school though. Like, yeah, he actually does pretty good, but he just hates focusing or whatever it might be. But he's like, I'm not going to college. He's like, how can I go learn from a high school or a college professor to be a billionaire if they're not billionaires? Like, I'm like, I understand what you're saying, but there's some foundational type stuff there. But so my son's already at starting at 11, he's 13 now, has that mindset of like, I just keep telling them, it goes back to all those things that we're talking about, like the ground level street skills and all those other things that you have to be way better at. And I think I've told other people this before, of if you're going to stay home during that time, you got to find a way to get ahead of all those people that in 2-4 years later, you got to be all way, you have to have much money, you have to have a bunch of things set up before you're in advance. So I totally agree with your mindset. And
yeah, it's also not like, hey, mom, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to go bartend. Yeah. Right? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's not just like, this sucks. Like, it's this sucks, and here is my solution. I'm going to go take my shot. If I fall on my face, cool. Like, at 23, I'll pick up the pieces. Right? Like, you can take your mulligans.
I love Alex Hormozi, his contingency plan. Now, he already graduated college and all that, but when he drove out west to open the gym, he's like, worst case scenario, I can Uber and I can strip.
Yeah. I could Uber. I don't know if people would want to see me strip, but we'll see about that. Yeah. Thankfully, I haven't had to hit that point yet. But
all right, so you get your license, right? Like, what cool, like, good accomplishment that does not bring in the bills.
No. And I learned that very, very fast, because I was probably a little naive into thinking, okay, I'm going to get my license and I'm just going to start making money. And it's it's not a profession where you just walk in and start making money. Very, very rarely have I seen it where brokers, and whether they're doing commercial, residential, whatever their specific thing is, it's very hard right off the bat to be making money. And so for the first, 3 to 6 months, I didn't make any money. And I was at a crisis, because now I've burned the ships and I'm now having to call my dad saying, Dad, like, I'm making no money. Granted, they were supporting me through this time, because I told them, hey, look, I have 2 years left of college. They were supporting me through college. So I just told them, you just need to support me through these 2 years that I would have been in college, but I'm just waking up and going to work instead of going to class. But I was freaking out, and I felt like, honestly, I felt like a failure, because I'm like, now I'm falling behind. All my friends who I live with are going to college and moving the needle, and I'm kind of going in circles, and I haven't been able to figure anything out. But my dad really encouraged me to stick with it, and I then joined a small team that focused heavily on leasing. And I felt like that made a lot of sense, because prior to that, the only business I was getting was through other people at DePaul. That's kind of how I started making a name for myself in the area, of being like, listen, I'm going to help you find an apartment, and I'm going to do a stand-up job. And if you want to come work with me, let me know, because I know this like the back of my hand. And so that's kind of how I started getting the ball rolling, just making a little bit of cash here. I mean, the first deal I did, I think I made a couple $100, like studio apartment for like $1,000. Like, it was, but to this day, it was super cool that happened. And I look back on it kind of with a lot of gratitude. And from there, joining that team really helped, because I was finally getting some hands-on experience, mentorship. And from there, I just figured out ways to leverage relationships. I just leaned into the people that had already kind of knew me, and leaned into the relationships I was building through these small leasing transactions, that they would stick with me for years to come. So sure, the first year I didn't make a lot of money. The second year I didn't make a lot of money. But finally, by the third and fourth year, I start seeing the compound effect of these people coming back and referring me out and having friends. And now those people who were renting the $1,000 apartments from me are now buying, potentially condos or investment properties or whatever have you.
When you first got your license, though, did you go right into leasing like day one trying to get business, or were you trying to figure out sales? Like,
whatever it takes, right?
Yeah, like what team did you join at first, or did you join a team later?
Yeah,
like,
so I joined, I was actually at a small commercial firm called Hanson Realty for a very short stint at the start, because they do both. They have the portion of their business that does the licensing exams, like practice courses and help you get prep for that. And then they also have a brokerage. So I just was like, all right, I'll just hang my license here. I needed a little bit more hands-on mentorship, joined a team at Sotheby's, which is with the brokerage I'm with right now. And that was run by a guy named Ryan Grober. He ran the Grober Group, and they do a ton of leasing. And he just kind of went into with the philosophy of like, I'm feeding you to the wolves a little bit, but it's going to be for the best, because you're going to learn so much so quick. And that's really what happened. I was doing leasing in Pilsen, Hermosa, all over the city, learning neighborhoods that I never even heard of, coming from Vernon Hills. Like, it was just a lot all at once. But I look back and I'm like, that really, really paved me into what I'm able to do now. Because I feel like I've kind of got a well-rounded.
Any good stories? Any dumb moments?
Yeah. So I have a good one that when I was. So we were doing a lease up, and it was like the first time he gave me like a nice project, like because I was kind of doing the scraps that nobody really wanted, and I still to this day do a lot of that. But it was a luxury, it was new construction rentals in Pilsen, and he was like, "I trust you. I want you to do the whole thing." And we go there, we're starting to do showings, and as anybody knows, you got to vet these people, especially when the applications come in, and making sure everything looks good. So I'm talking with the guy on the showing. He's telling me, oh, yeah. I'm like, what do you do for work? Telling me he works at this car dealership or something along those lines. Everything looked good. He's like, I love it. I want this place. And I'm like, great. It's like a $3,000 a month place. At the time, $3,000 is like $1 million. And so we get the applications in, and part of our process is we call the employers to make sure everything's verified. And I'm looking at the pay stubs on the application, and something just didn't seem right. You know, like something looking at the document was like off. It was actually pretty well done, but I don't know, something sixth sense. And we're kind of looking at the information. Things aren't adding up. I call the employer. They have no record of this guy ever working there. And it was my first experience in the fact that there's people out there who fake pay stubs and have fake information, fake social security, whatever have you, to try and get and circumvent the process. And that was really eye-opening to me. And now that I have an investment property myself, I think that experience kind of has helped me realize that a little bit
How'd
more.
the conversation go with them?
Not very well.
A lot of times, in my experience, we get those all the time, and they're super defensive, and they almost like try to bully like you into it.
Yeah, you're discriminating. It's like, no, you spelled deductions wrong on your fake pay stub. Like,
dead giveaway there.
Yeah, come on, man.
The math. We always get the math is wrong on the pay stub.
Yeah. I actually had one recently. This was like a month ago. We're recording this in February, where his year to date, he gave me like a December pay stub and a January. And his year to date, he just kept going.
Oh,
like,
my gosh.
I was like, dude, like that's not how it works.
Come on, if you're gonna do it, at least do it right.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. The math, they say they screw up all the time on those. So.
Yeah. The conversation didn't go well. And we've had to deny other applications before. Those typically never go well, especially when I was working on that team, and I would have to deliver that. And I was young and kind of nervous. So like I'd have people telling me, oh, like I'm going to kill you, or I'm going to find you, and I'm going to like, you're discriminatory, like whatever. And at 21, I'm like, dang, like I'm puckering my cheeks a little. I'm like, oh gosh, like this is a little nerve wracking. I don't know what they know about me, but obviously nothing ended up happening. And it's just kind of the nature of the business sometimes. I mean, there's some crazy people, and you have to, thankfully, like as a broker, you get access to Forewarn, which is the app where you can look up their phone numbers before you're meeting these random people, see if they have criminal backgrounds, things like that. But you know, there's a level of it that's it just is what it is. And as you do it enough times, it starts becoming less and less impactful.
It's two things. Forewarn, we had him on the podcast. It was a while ago. I think it was episode 200. But they, I use it for my kids' parents even now. Hopefully they're not listening. But I use it for my kids' parents to make sure that where my kids are going to hang out.
That's smart.
My son's friend had like a bullying situation where it was two random numbers they were doing from, and we looked it up and we figured it out. So Forewarn has been great for other parts of my life too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you're legally allowed to do that. So
No.
He didn't. He's just saying that.
yeah, just theoretically, like if someone was in that situation.
Theoretically, if somebody was in this situation and they wanted to do it, they could do it, but it would be illegal.
And now when people threaten me though, when the fraud, because the fraudsters, they always come off like heavy. Like now it's more of just like, listen, you're not going to do that because you know you're wrong here, and you're mad right now. So let's just move on. You've been caught. This is like, see if this could work somewhere else.
Yeah, just
click.
So you've leased up, I'm assuming, hundreds of apartments at this point.
At this point, I mean, it's kind of hard to keep track because a lot of the deals, some are on MLS, some aren't. We've been on teams where the production maybe hasn't gone on, but been involved with hundreds, if not thousands, of leasing transactions at this point in this short, relatively 5 years. So
yep. So we talked about some of like the scam artists here. Can you give a couple other just pieces of advice to that person who just bought their first 3 unit and they're leasing up their apartment?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I'm so scared. I don't know, because a lot, and I've helped house hackers, and I feel like everyone gets overly scared about leasing up, rightfully so, because the downside is there, and like no one's ever taught them how to do it. But it's not. I don't know. Walk us through, like, to that person, what would you say?
For
like,
sure.
Hey.
Well, like I said, I had the benefit so I bought a 4-unit McHenry in April of last year. So that was my first investment property. So I wanted to self-manage that one just because I wanted to get the hands-on experience and learn. But for somebody who maybe doesn't have the real estate background and the leasing background that I did, I think the first thing is at least consider hiring out property management with GC Realty or... I mean, like, well, your guys' track record is amazing with how many tenants that you guys place and how little eviction process you have to go through. So that's kind of the first thing there is get with somebody or a management company that you can trust that's going to help you through that process. If you're dead set on doing it yourself, make sure you have a really, really good application screening software. Make sure, like I was doing, calling these employers on the people. Like, don't just assume that the information that they're giving you is correct because people lie. Like, I hate to say it, it's the reality of the world we live in. People lie. And also, if you are, again, going to be doing the leasing yourself, try and be there for showings and try and, like, again, you can't discriminate towards people, but you can get a feel kind of through the showings as to what the type and feel them out. Like, sometimes there's instances where people will tell you information on the showing and then you're like, something doesn't add up, and then the application comes in and that confirms what you were thinking. So I think it's just about knowing that and also getting around the right people, specifically a management company or a broker or somebody like that who really has that experience to help you.
I'll take what you said a step further. A lot of people, everything you explained and everything you should do and need to do if you're doing it on your own is great, but it just takes a lot of time. And I think people underestimate the amount of hours you put into turning it over, where I think at the end they get tired and they slip at that point, or they're like, I just gotta get someone moved in.
Or they had like the person lined up, like they had a good application, and then they bailed for another place.
Yeah,
and then there's like the emotional part of like, okay, I gotta get the next person. And like, I need to get this leased up for, and like,
I gotta pay a payment here in a month, like, or in
that's
a week,
when mistakes. You're vulnerable,
right? Because now you're desperate.
Stay disciplined.
I mean, if you really look at all the time puts in a turnover, we've all done turnovers here, like from the time that moves out and just the communication up front. The time they move out, all the figuring out what you got to do to the place, then getting everyone lined up to do the place, then getting the place on the market. And if you're showing it, you got to be showing it 2, 3, 4 times a week. And then those are you live 45 minutes from the property, like all those things, like all add up. And then underwriting the application. Now you have to, if you're in that situation, you probably should be taking twice as long just because you don't know what you're doing. And then you got the movement. Like, it's just a lot. You add. It's really easy. Just on the lease side of it alone, 20 hours. You throw the turnover side, you're at 50, 60 hours, like in that. And that's why I always tell people, it's like, pay, if you got a $2,000 rental, pay the $2,000, and like you get all that time back, and you're buying someone else's systems.
Well, exactly. And for a lot of these people, these mom and pop landlords, they're working another job. This isn't their full-time thing. Like, your time isn't best spent doing that. Your time is best spent doing other things. Even if that isn't working, spending time with your family, with your kids, whatever you want to do. You bought the property because you want something long-term from it that's going to provide value in your life. If it's starting to drain you or like take away value in your life, it's no longer really an investment. You've kind of just done nothing, made a lateral move, if not gone backwards. And then a lot of these people end up just selling or being like, I'm done. Like, I have so many clients that are like, I'm going to buy a place, I'm going to live in it for a year, I'm going to move out and rent it out. They're just not cut out to be landlords. It sounds glamorous, especially if you're trying to do it yourself, but...
I'm so happy you said that, because that's the saddest part. Mm-hmm. When somebody gives up because they got burned, and a lot of times they did something wrong. It was their own mistake, and they just feel they have to. They're done. They'll go back to the stock market. Like that's the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to look at these things in 10, 20-year increments, like, right? Like that's reality.
Yep. My best investment properties are the ones I bought 15 years ago.
Yes. When he was 10.
Yeah.
That's funny.
All right, so you ended up buying something out in McHenry.
Yeah.
Before we go like talk about the actual investment, was that always the goal? Like when you got your license, you're like, hey, I'm gonna be an investor. Like, are we on like the bigger pockets train? Like what?
Yeah.
Like just talk to us about that mindset.
So it's funny. I made a LinkedIn post about it today too, because 2020 is when the podcast.
I saw that, which was awesome.
Yeah,
by the way.
Your guys' podcast started right around 2020, and I found it at that point. So between you guys, bigger pockets, just all the YouTube people, and not just in the real estate space, some general like finance space, the Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dads, all those types of people. I was totally on that train, and I still am, because I'm using the real estate brokerage side to hopefully fund my investments, because that's really what I'm most passionate about, what my long-term goal is. And that's really what the fuel is. I've got the brokerage side here. That's kind of like the fuel for the vehicle. And then the vehicle, ideally, the vehicle right now is probably a smart car, but ideally getting that
but
vehicle.
you're 25.
Right,
like
right. 24, almost 25.
Yeah.
But like ideally getting that smart car to become larger and larger. And then eventually it's a Rolls Royce.
I might have told you this when we talked, but the advice I was given early on, and I always stuck with me, was brokerage will make you rich. Investing will make you wealthy.
I like that a lot.
And that's, I mean, for anyone that's in the business,
might be my next tattoo idea.
To have that, I like it. There you go. To have that mentality of like, this is what you're doing this as a means to get over here and be on this side.
Yeah. But what's interesting though is how many brokers don't invest in real estate.
I know.
Not even just invest, don't own real estate, period.
Don't even know anything about like pro formas.
Anything. Like they're I always say there's like a running joke. The reason why they're called brokers is because one's broker than the next. Like it comes in just like it comes in and goes out just as fast for a lot of them. And I see it firsthand. There's a lot of brokers who make really good money, but it's not how much you make; it's how much you keep at the end of the day. And I come from a mindset where, again, old school, a little bit mindset, live below your means, make sure that you have money to not just save, but also invest it. And that's kind of my philosophy on the whole thing. The
brokers that get into the business that I've seen be successful, they run into the other problem year 2 or 3, where it's like, oh shit, $40,000 tax bill. I thought, I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
I didn't know this.
Yeah.
And then also they're on a payment plan with the IRS, or they're having different problems because they're not calling the IRS. That's another, you're a small business at that point, and you forget that. So.
Yeah, for sure. And being a real estate broker, without getting I'm not a CPA. My brother's a CPA, but I'm not a CPA. And the tax benefits that come along with being a real estate professional and owning real estate is just even greater. So it's a no-brainer to be a real estate broker and also own and invest in real estate. And the fact that so many people don't should be a little bit, I think it's something that you should at least talk to with your broker, like if they actually own something.
I agree. Stay on this for 1 second here. I think somebody told me a while ago, I think it was Vince DePaul, he said a good broker will always encourage, it will help their agents become investors, like as a plan of success. So, but it's amazing how many don't. And like, I tell people all the time, get your real estate license so you're close enough to become a better investor. So you're closer to the deal. Yeah. So you're understanding what's going on. So you understand what transactions look like. And there's so many people. I would say there's about 10% that are investment-minded brokers. The other 90% are sell your aunt's house, so forth. So Frank Mantra had a crazy stat the other day that like
Frank's funny. I like listening to him.
Was it 50% of brokers didn't do a deal a deal at all last year? Or
it was a surprisingly large number. I don't remember the percentage.
So then you have that. So you have them not even doing anything at the same time as well too. But the investors, they don't realize they're so close to like that. Like just like, hey, I want to sell my house. Yeah, you can't get this much, but okay. Then instead of like trying to buy, even try to work out a deal, fair deal that's above board that you could buy yourself, or you could refer it over here, or refer it to your wholesaler that'll throw you money because they can throw it off market because you can't get the hoarder. Like all those different ways to make money in real estate. They just are so like tunnel vision of sell your house, new drapes. Like that's it. Like
for sure, you become kind of boxed in a little bit.
Oh, it's a shame.
Yeah. Because it's not just like taught in a class. That's why, I'm not defending it, but like you have to go on your own and be like, well, I want to do this. How do I do it? And then find the resources and then do it. Which again is very doable, but because it's not some set out pattern, that's why people don't follow it. If it's not paint by numbers, it's hard for people to follow. Our brains are just wired to think like, okay, I go to high school, then I go to college, and I do this, and I do this. And if you want to go off the path at all, like you have to take it upon yourself.
As a managing broker here at GC, I talk to people all the time coming to business, and
you said that pretty proudly. No big deal. Like, as the managing broker, Sir Ainley.
I was trying to put it in context.
Sir Ainley, managing broker extraordinaire.
So I was talking to people that get their license, right? And it's really important to understand what they want to do. And a lot of times, you get a good education when you go to a place like Sotheby's, or you get a lot of like training. But you don't get tons of. I'm not saying Sotheby's specific, but a lot of these bigger name brokers. They'll teach you the sales of a residential home for Sally, the homeowner, all day long.
Yep.
But they don't do much more than that. And I always tell these people, like, hey, man, if your game is investment, you're going to have to maybe sacrifice some of that training, or you go there for 1 year and then figure out where you're going to go next to have your, because I got to the point where probably about 10 years ago, it's like, listen, I'm going to give you no training. If you want to learn real estate investing or you want to be around investors, like you come here. But otherwise, like I used to try to like be something I wasn't early on. And that's a decision people, they fail on that first couple because they don't understand what they need. So,
yeah. All right. So let's talk about the investment. So we're out in McHenry. I'm assuming we're not house hacking, right? Because you guys are in the office is in Old Town?
Office is in Old Town. We do majority of our business in the city. I'd say probably 75% is in the city. On the brokerage side, 75% in the city, maybe 25% in the surrounding suburbs. As our clients get older, age out, some are looking in the burbs, some are from the burbs. So that'll probably
age out, be like hit 30.
Yeah. No offense to anybody who took offense to that, but I mean, again, just the path is always this. So you got a kid from the burbs, they go to college, move to the city, get hitched, move back to the burbs, then maybe get someplace in the city after their kids move out. You know?
Have you ever heard the saying balcony baby?
No,
I've never heard that.
Yeah, I know my cousins. They say they live in the city still, and they're like, yeah, we have balcony babies, because they don't have a yard to go out.
Yeah,
they have to play in the
that's funny. I like that. But yeah, the reason I chose McHenry, of why I wasn't dead set on McHenry, but I don't love just flat out saying it. I don't love the way Cook County handles a lot of things. I don't love the way a lot of things are handled in terms of just. You just look at the laws and how everything goes. And I felt like for me on my first investment, I don't want to get burned from something that's really like out of my control. I want to be in as much of within Illinois, as much of kind of a landlord friendly area without going too far out as I could. Felt like McHenry's not too far from where I grew up in Vernon Hills. The area itself, like when I look at investments, yes, there's a numbers aspect and I know how to do all of that. And I've taught it to myself and been around a lot of people who have taught me so many things, but I think we also have to take into account, like just you just got to drive the area sometimes and just see, like kind of take the numbers side of it as important, but also just looking at the area and just looking at things and how things are going. People walking in and out of shops, like how busy is the downtown area on a Saturday? Like, is it dead or is it packed? McHenry, I was shocked when I was driving down there. I'm like, the whole downtown on Green Street at night or during the day, I think it was in my showing, I'm like, it is packed. Like you cannot get a car in any of these areas. Every restaurant had it like wall to wall. So I'm like, all right, I don't need to be a rocket scientist. I don't need to be a college graduate to figure out that makes sense. That this is an area that people are looking like they are enjoying to live. And, you know, cost of living is going up and the circle of where the suburbs that people live in start to expand. And it was a good entry level deal. And I got a really good deal on it. So, yeah.
Nice. Cool. It's cool to see, like, you actually, because you didn't house hack, you had to put a quote unquote normal down payment down, right? So like you actually saved up and put down, and now you're not highly leveraged.
Yeah, correct. And I saved up I did that by living at home, and I still live at home to lower my expenses as much as possible.
Do it,
because
man.
I'm like, listen, it's not glamorous. It's not a great pickup line at a bar when you're talking to a girl. But at the end of the day, like...
But yeah, you got a 4-unit in McHenry.
Right. And like I got a 4-unit. I'm going to hopefully be getting another property this year. And in your 20s, I think that it's not like that crazy to say, hey, I'm living at my parents'. Now, when you're in your 30s and 40s and 50s, you really want to be doing that. And I have a theory that I think a lot of these people that are, 20-somethings living it up, popping bottles at Tao every night in the city, are going to run out of money at some point and have to figure out. You can only kick the can down the road so long before you have to, metaphorically pay the piper. And that may come at the expense of either moving into a crappier place or maybe having to move in with mom and dad when you're a little bit older. Again, not the end of the world, not hating on it, but I just don't want to put myself ever in that sort of position. So
I've heard a few podcasts recently where the topic's been about, do you grind in your 20s or you save it for your 30s? Or party in your 20s and save it for your 30s? Like,
yeah.
It's like
a total, like, there. And I've heard both sides. I have friends that think I'm nuts. Like, I totally get it. Like, I know I'm not, that's not everybody's cup of tea. I have friends that are like, you're going to look back in your 30s and be like, I didn't live in my, and it's like, no. I love my life. Like, I do everything on my own accord. I have a very fulfilling life. I would just be more upset if I didn't do the things I'm doing now and then say I was living it up and doing all the partying and this and that. It's like, well, who am I doing that for? I'm no longer doing it for myself. I'm doing it for you because now I'm living the life that you want me to live, not the life that I want to live. So, to each their own. That's why Baskin Robbins has 31 flavors. Not everybody just wants vanilla and chocolate. So
there you go.
I tried doing both. If I go back,
yeah, I was gonna say like
I tried
maybe a triple scooper.
it was I was like, all right, cool. I made some money, and I got this interest-free credit card for 12 months. Let's go on party, and then you throw a party for your friends. Like I got 12 months fit, but I tried to do both ends. I tried to live high and play high, and I regretted that probably. Don't get me wrong. I regretted I could have more now, or I don't think I would have focused any more on work because I don't think I could have done that. I don't think so.
Well, you can go have your fun and do whatever, but like it's not an excuse for not tackling what you want to tackle.
Yeah,
true.
Right? Like this isn't like some binary thing. Like you still got to go take care of business.
Well, and also one thing that I always bring up to people is like, fun is so subjective.
Yeah.
Like I personally I don't drink, so I don't really get too much enjoyment out of like going out and partying because it's just not my thing. I like going to like a smaller setting with my boys or my friends or whatever. I like that type of environment a little bit more. I love working. I just really enjoy building my business. I have a passion for it. So it's like I get enjoyment out of that. And like, I don't know, there's a little bit of a ego of telling somebody like, oh no, you should be living the way I want to live or I want you to live instead of like, because everybody enjoys different things. So, that's why I try and just like live and let live a little bit.
Yep.
For me, when I turned 21, I think the excitement of getting in with my real ID sucked. So I really stopped going out as much when I turned 21.
Yeah. I don't want to say anything that'll incriminate me, but I have the same sentiment. So,
all right. So then the brokerage, right? Because you went out on your own then.
Yeah. So
talk to us about that step.
Yeah. So I'm still with the brokerage, but we have our own team. So I started that team 2 years ago simply because I needed help. Like I didn't have the bandwidth to service as much. We have such a heavy leasing component that, as you guys know, leases it's a volume game. And when you're doing 100, 200 plus leases, like I can't do all that on my own. You just said the numbers yourself. Just each turnover is probably 20 hours of work. Like I can't be doing that. We did a 38 or 48 unit building lease up that our investor client bought, rehabbed, and we did the lease up for that. Immediately got thrown into doing a second one for him, which was 75 units. And it's like, I needed the help for that. And so there wasn't a whole lot of structure. Like I could lie and say like I had everything buttoned up and everything. Like, no, I fly by the seat of my pants a little bit because I think sometimes that you can have all the plans you want in the world, but don't let the plan be preventing you from even starting.
Yeah, God doesn't care about your spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Like things are going to come, good or bad.
Correct. And I like that saying a lot. So yeah, we just kind of, the team started because I needed the help. The two people on my team are Gordy Babb and Sasha Rajko, who I adore. Gordy is my college roommate, friend from high school. He's just absolute workhorse. Sasha, I know from college as well. And us three really have a unique thing because we're all younger. We all are bought into what we're doing. We don't have the outside obligations of having families yet. So that's kind of one of the unique selling points that I tried to tell people is it's like, listen, again, like I was going back to earlier, we may not have the combined 50 years of experience, but I got
Saturdays and Sundays for you.
Yeah. Like I don't got kids T-ball yet. I don't got any sort of things tying me down. Like I can hustle and grind, and it would be my privilege to do that for you. And I think a lot of people respect that. Like I sold a $3 million house in Hinsdale off of a rental transaction that I did for my client, simply because I didn't know this at the time, but his dad was watching over what I was doing for his son just on a rental transaction. And he was just really, really impressed with my work ethic, my follow-up, my just ability to do all that we landed an off-market house for him in Hinsdale for $3 million. And so that's just what I love about the business, is that there's just so much, like, you never know what's going to happen next, and it really keeps life interesting.
Yep. What do you see the next, call it 3 years in the business? Like, are you guys going to still be this leasing heavy? Because it's a grind, or is there going to be some sort of, are you planning on some sort of transition?
Yeah, I think we're definitely starting to see the sales side of our business pick up just naturally. And that's kind of the vision I had from the start, is it's like, we're going to get a lot of these clients on the tenant side, a lot of them in our spheres when they're young, but we're going to grow with them. So we're going to be the first people to treat them like an adult. I mean, we really were for a lot of these kids. And now they're starting to get a little bit older, and whether it's buying investment property or buying their first house or something along those lines, like, we're able to help facilitate that. So I think for us, it's just, we have this big leasing component. I don't ever want to let it go, because again, it's a lot of fuel for the business, but that's our business model. It's the renter to buyer pipeline. And then also we have a little bit of on the landlord side as well.
Anyone in your situation right now has thoughts about, do I go out on my own and open my own company? Where's your head with that?
Yeah, I have thought about that. And it's something that I think in the next 3 to 5 years is definitely a possibility.
What are your pros and cons in your head of
I think that the pro is obviously the autonomy, the ability to run it how you see fit. You're not tied down to any sort of, brand guidelines with the brokerage, and obviously the splits with the brokerage that you have to deal with. The downsides are, you're also like, I know how much paperwork and BS goes in, like admin stuff that goes into running these things. And I can't stand that. I don't even like it now, and I'm not even doing half of it, because we have, transaction coordinators, listing coordinators, marketing coordinators. So it's like, I don't know. I go back and forth in my head. It's not something that I'm chomping at the bit to do, because we're able to run a successful business the way it is, but always looking to improve. And I would be dumb to say that's not in my in my sights.
Well, I think it always comes down to how much money you're paying in, and is there a arbitrage in there of, if I did this on my own, there's this much in between that I could be keeping on the top line. So
right.
It's a math problem.
Yeah, it is. And it's, yeah.
Because you can always, everything you hate, there's plenty of people that love doing that. So it's more of a hiring problem than it is a paperwork problem.
Exactly. Very true. Very true.
Yeah. Let's go backwards a little bit now. You've done a lot coming up to 24 years old here, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is very impressive.
Thank you.
With all that said, though, like, if you had to do it again, what would you have done differently? Like, you got to go back to 2020 right now, right? Things have worked out well, but like, what are some things where it's like, okay, I would have done X, Y, Z?
I think for me, I would have known, I would have gotten around people that are more investment focused earlier on, because that's what my long-term goal was, and it still is. So I spent a lot of time just trying to make quick money, because I'm like, well, I gotta, if I'm not making money, then I'm failing and whatever. I would have sacrificed any money to just get around the right people, which I have been able to now. But earlier on, I could have done that and just done it free of charge. Like, I know there's a lot of people who are like, there's a lot of controversy around doing any sorts of free work. But I'm like, listen, if you're 20 years old and just left college, and there's a really successful real estate investor or whatever it is, and you approach them and just say, hey, I just want to learn from you, and you show them that you can add some sort of value, even if it's literally you just want to be around them and you do odd jobs for them, the odds are they're going to give you a shot. At least some of them are, and you're going to learn so much more from that than you would by doing, a few small things on your own and doing them hodgepodge, half-ass. So that's kind of would have been my thing from the start.
Yeah, and on top of that too, then you get not only the relationship with that individual, but you're introduced to that person's network.
Yep.
And that's one of the things I've realized, now lenders, attorneys, all like good people have good people, right?
Always.
The more you can surround yourself, like the better things get. All of a sudden you have 3 or 4 plumbers you can call or whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
Right? So
let me ask you this question. As a transition in your life, have you, like your friends you had when you're 18, 19, 20, like have you kind of grown apart from them and grown into new friends? Like have you gone through that?
Yeah, I definitely have a lot of long-standing friends that I still keep in touch with, but I've, along the way, I think become closer with new groups of friends, just as like my interests and what my passion for work has been over this last 5 years. I've made some really, really good friends through the business. And don't get me wrong, I still have a lot of very good high school friends and friends from college that I keep in touch with. But just as anything is, I mean, you can only maintain so many close friendships. And as you evolve, your friends are going to evolve. I do think I try to do, especially given the nature of my business, try very, very hard to maintain relationships with as many people as I can. But yeah, it's something that's been an evolution. And there's some people that I look back and I'm like, like it was nice and like it was a good while it lasted, but there's no longer any, like I wouldn't be of value in their life and they wouldn't be a value of mine. So, some people are, some people are in your life for a reason and some people are in for a season, something along those, some sort of sign that you see at Home Goods and your mom would put up in her lake house.
all right. Good to wrap?
Good to wrap.
Let's do it.
Cool. All right. What's your competitive advantage? How have you been able to do this at the age of 24 while other 27-year-olds wish they could have?
Yeah. I think that, let me wait here on that. Gotta let that one marinate a little bit. Sorry. I think our competitive advantage is our authenticity, that we don't try and be something that we're not, that we're very, very straightforward with all the people that we work with as to who we are, what we do, what they can expect from us. And we set our expectations from both ends right from the start. And so nobody ever leaves coming to work with us, whatever they're doing, disappointed, because they've already been walk through the process. They already know what they're getting into. Whereas I think sometimes with other people, it's just kind of this run and gun, and you don't even know what's going on. Whereas we have a little bit more of a systematic approach. And also, I spoke on this earlier, but the fact that we're young and we're hungry and we got something to prove, that is an advantage and a fire under your ass that's unlike any other. It really is.
Yeah, that authenticity is what attracted me to.
Yeah.
All right, so you've gone and you've purchased your first investment property.
Yep.
What is the one piece of advice you would tell someone that is yet to purchase their first investment?
Do not tell the tenants that you own the building. You have no reason to tell the tenants that you own the building. Say you're the building manager if you want to keep in touch with them. Say I don't care, but do not tell them that you own the building, because I have gotten many calls. I've gotten drunk calls from my tenants at 11 o'clock at night, 11:30 at night. I've gotten many, many calls that I won't bore you with, but there's no reason to do that.
Man, I've fallen away from giving that advice because I feel like people just don't listen to me. But man, that is number one, especially when you're younger too. Like you can, hey, my dad owns this building. I'm gonna have to run it by. You become the go-between versus the guy that has to make the decision.
Yeah. Because I was so young. I remember going in the inspection. I'm like, yeah, I'm buying the building, guys. Like, well, I'm your new landlord.
Yeah,
well, that's great.
40-year-old does not care.
This 24-year-old is now going to be my landlord. Like, okay, sounds good. I'll make sure to call you at 11:30 when I'm slamming the bottle. So
yeah. Oh man, it's funny. So what do you do for fun then?
That's part of, I think, one of the areas that I probably need to work on a little bit more, because outside of work, I think my hobbies are, I love just spending time with my friends. I love spending time with my family. That's obviously cliche. I grew up playing hockey. So hockey, even though I don't really play anymore, is still a big part of my life, watching it, being a part of that community. And I also I have such a passion for my business that sometimes when I'm like not working on my business, I'm doing things that are or working in my business, I should say. I'm doing things that are adjacent to working on my business. So even if it's just like grabbing dinner with somebody who is in some sort of entrepreneurial role, picking their brain, doing things like that, I really, really enjoy doing things like that. I spend a lot of time with my girlfriend. I like to travel a little bit here and there, not too much, but I feel like I live a pretty...
Travel or time with your girlfriend?
But I feel like my hobbies are kind of limited because of the fact that I spend so much time with my business and my work. So probably something I could improve on a little bit, but for the time being, I enjoy it.
All right. Give us either a good book, podcast, or self-development activity that you'd recommend to our listeners.
Book, podcast, or self-development activity. Self-development, I would say meditation. I think meditation is something that I've actually implemented over the last year. And I mean, if you would have told me 5 years ago, Micheal Kaplan would be sitting in a room for 10 minutes, 15 minutes a morning and meditating, I'd be like, you're off your rocker. I'm not some woo-woo, yogi drinking kombucha. Like, that's not me. That is just not me at all. But the scientific medical benefits of it are really impactful. And if you're somebody who is a high performer or consider yourself a high performer, you're probably a little bit high strung, you probably mind's going all day. I think that things that you can do, whether it's meditation, obviously, or going for a walk, whatever it is, that can kind of make a little bit of a distance there and create that gap, I think could be really, really beneficial for your mental health and sanity. So,
other than yourself, name a valuable resource for other Chicago real estate investors.
Ooh. Straight Up Chicago Investor Podcast.
There you go. Good answer. Let's give GC. He gave you a plug with GC, giving us a plug here. All right, awesome. So, Micheal, thank you so much. You provide a ton of value to our listeners. How can they learn more about you? Is there any way they can provide value to you?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram. My personal Instagram handle is @m.j.kaplan. I tried to get every variation of Micheal Kaplan, but there's about 60,000 in the Chicagoland area, so alone. So we had to go with MJ Kaplan. Or at REKAP Group, REKAP Group on Instagram is our team page. It's probably the fastest way to find me and find our team and what we're about.
Hold on. You called me through Instagram today.
Yeah.
I didn't know you could fucking call people through Instagram.
We didn't know what Instagram was like 2 years ago, Mark.
I'm like, my phone's ringing. Like, how's this happening? Like, oh man, I'm horrible dating myself here. But no, one other note. My partner asked, like, who's coming down today? You guys got a show? I said, Micheal Kaplan. He's like, that sounds familiar. I'm like, no, there's a million of them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Trust me, I get a text a week from somebody being like, do you know this Kaplan? Are you related to this Kaplan? I'm like, maybe. I don't know. Like, doubtful. So,
all right, Chicago Fact. Who are we playing for? Who's sponsoring?
All right, playing for Trudy Taylor, who bought a shirt at the Straight Up Chicago merch store. So thank you, Trudy. And today's sponsor is Das Law. So Trudy, if myself or Micheal gets this question right, you get a $50 gift card brought to you by Das Law. Be back, Das.
All right, cool. So their office is in Old Town, so somewhat of an Old Town question. All right, so
wish my dad was here or I could phone a friend. He's good at this stuff.
So you might be able to do this. All right, so when I think of Old Town, I think of St. Michael's Church. Like, isn't there's like the saying, if you'd hear the bells of St. Michael's, you're in Old Town. It's one of the few buildings to survive the Chicago fire. Within the boundaries of the actual fire, how many buildings survived?
Ooh, okay.
When
the Chicago fire happened, like not the city of Chicago, but within the boundaries of where the fire happened, how many actual buildings survived? And your options are 3, 7, 16, or 31.
Ooh. Are we both?
You both get a chance.
We have to. Why? I mean, I know Water Tower survived.
I'll say 7.
And what was the other options?
3, 7, 16, or 31.
I'll go 16.
It was 7. Good job.
Nice job.
Nice.
Well
I would have gone higher. I would have said I
done.
think 16, maybe even 31. I would have thought more.
That's a good question though. I like that one.
So do you know the 7?
I had to look them up.
Tower.
St. Michael's, the Water Tower, Chicago Avenue Pumping Station.
Okay.
I did not know this one. Police Constable Bellinger's Cottage. 2323 and 2039 North Cleveland. Church of the Holy Family. And then St. Ignatius College. Not St. Ignatius Prep. Is that the same?
So as a church, you got to be like, dude, God took care of us. Then.
Yeah.
You guys, all your churches suck. Like that's, if I was like leading
That's
those
the selling
churches, I would
point.
be like, you have a whole bunch of new mottos then at that point.
No, that's more build with stone. Build with stone and brick.
All right, Trudy, you get $50 gift card brought to you by Das Law. Be back Das. So anything for real estate that you're looking to do, Be back can definitely help you. He's somebody that represents us and GC. So, Micheal, thanks for coming on. Tom, thank you as always. Micheal Kaplan was a great guest, and if you know someone as great as Micheal or better, we would love to talk to them about being a guest. Shoot me a message on Instagram or fill out the form on the website at Mark Ainley REI. So, Michael, thank you. Tom, thank you. And listeners, we'll see you next week.